They lied. They humiliated you. And then they smiled, like nothing happened. As if your silence made it acceptable. As if your patience made you weak. But deep inside, you know the truth. They didn't change. They just got used to you not reacting. And maybe, for the longest time, you thought being strong meant being forgiving, being the bigger person, being endlessly understanding. But here's the Stoic truth. No one told you mercy without consequence isn't compassion, it's surrender. Some people don't grow through kindness. They grow through distance. They grow through the weight of their own actions. And if they never face what they've done, they'll keep doing it to you and to the next. So this is not about revenge. It's about clarity, boundaries, dignity. In this video, we'll explore 5 Stoic reasons why you must let people face the consequences of their choices without guilt, without anger, and without looking back, because peace is not found in fixing others. It's found in finally choosing yourself. You've seen it before. They lie to your face, betray your trust, wound your soul, and then return with a half-hearted apology, a nervous smile, and the audacity to say, "Can we just move on?" But here's the truth. No one tells you if someone only says sorry after being caught. That's not remorse, that's reputation management. A truly remorseful person doesn't need prompting. They don't argue with your silence. They don't rush your healing. They don't treat your boundaries like inconveniences. They sit in discomfort. They accept that forgiveness is not access. They understand that regret doesn't entitle them to return. And yet, we live in a culture obsessed with premature forgiveness. Everywhere you turn, social media, sermons, self-help gurus, they preach, let it go. Be the bigger person. Don't carry hate in your heart. But Stoicism doesn't ask you to hate. It asks you to see clearly, to recognize that there is a massive difference between inner peace and reopening the gates to someone who hasn't changed. Let's be brutally honest. When you forgive someone who isn't sorry, who hasn't reflected, who hasn't earned that second chance, you're not healing. You're erasing yourself. And here's what's worse. Every time you do that, every time you excuse the inexcusable, you teach them something dangerous that worked. I can do it again. It's not that they're evil in some cartoonish way. It's that the behavior brings them results. Why would they change? If betrayal still gives them access, if manipulation still gets them sympathy, if apologies are enough to reset everything, they have no reason to evolve. Now let's be clear. Forgiveness is noble. It releases you from the poison of resentment. But forgiveness does not mean reconnection, because reconnection without change isn't healing, it's self-betrayal. And if they say, "Why are you being so cold? Didn't I say sorry? Can't we just go back to how things were?" That is your cue to remember this trust. Once broken, is not returned on demand. It must be rebuilt brick by painful brick, or accepted as lost. And here's the Stoic response. No yelling, no drama, no emotional explosions, just quiet clarity. You lied. I don't trust you. You disrespected me. I need distance. You crossed the line. I'm drawing one now. You don't owe them a conversation. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace. Because at the end of the day, you don't enforce consequences to hurt them. You enforce consequences to stop hurting yourself. Let them think you're heartless. Let them call you dramatic. Let them accuse you of being unforgiving. That's fine. Because only people who were comfortable disrespecting you will be offended by your boundaries. Don't judge them by their apologies. Judge them by their habits. Words are easy. A tear can be rehearsed. A sorry can be perfectly timed. But you know what never lies: patterns. It's not the single mistake that defines someone. It's the repeated behavior. They never seem to change, no matter how many chances you give them. Let's make this real. You have a friend who constantly forgets your birthday, but always expects a gift and attention on theirs. A sibling who cracks humiliating jokes about you at every family gathering, then brushes it off with, "Relax. It was just a joke." A partner who always promises to do better, but somehow keeps crossing the exact same lines, always with an excuse ready. Sound familiar? At first, you make excuses. They're stressed. They didn't mean it. They're just going through something. But deep inside, a quiet voice begins to whisper, "This is not a one-time thing. This is who they choose to be, again and again." And here's the hard truth. They're not slipping. They're strategizing. Just enough charm to win you back. Just enough guilt to make you stay. Just enough distraction so you question your own instincts. It's like standing in the rain, thinking it's a storm, only to look up and realize someone's holding the hose. Let me tell you about Evelyn, a retired widow in her 70s, gentle, thoughtful, the type of woman who sends handwritten thank you notes. Her adult daughter began visiting more often after her husband passed. At first, it felt like healing. She helped with groceries, took her to appointments, called daily. Evelyn called it a blessing. But then came the hints. How hard things are lately. How much she's sacrificing to help. Then came the favors. Could you help with the phone bill this month? Would you mind putting this on your credit card for now? Each time Evelyn hesitated. The calls stopped. The visits became colder. Then, after a few days, warmth again, like nothing ever happened. This isn't care. This is a cycle, a pattern. And the worst part, people like Evelyn, kind, patient, uncomfortable with confrontation, rarely draw the line. So it repeats. And with each repetition, the emotional cost grows. But here's the turning point. When Evelyn began journaling, writing down every request, every shift in behavior, she started to see it clearly. Not a storm, a system. The same is true in your life. The moment you stop making emotional excuses and start looking at the data of behavior, you stop being confused and you start being conscious. And let's be clear, forgiving the same offense over and over is not strength. It's surrender. A Stoic doesn't surrender their peace to someone else's dysfunction. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." But it's not your job to teach truth to those who refuse to see it. It's your job to recognize truth when it reveals itself over and over and over again. Because some people aren't sorry. They're comfortable. They don't want your forgiveness. They want your silence. They want your access without change. So here's what you do. Stop arguing with their excuses. Stop debating their intention. And start listening to what they've already shown you. Behavior is truth. Patterns are proof. And your peace is priceless. Let's clear something up once and for all. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. It's clarity. It's character. It's self-respect. But here's the problem. If you've been conditioned to keep the peace, to always accommodate, to be the bigger person, then the moment you say no, you'll feel guilty. You'll feel like you're the problem. You'll start asking yourself, am I being too harsh? What if they get upset? What if I lose them? But here's the truth. Most people never say out loud, if someone leaves because you enforced a healthy boundary, they were only there because you didn't. Let that sink in. Why we struggle with boundaries. It starts early. Maybe you grew up in a home where love was conditional, where saying no made you the villain, where setting limits meant being labeled selfish, ungrateful, or cold. So now, as an adult, every time you try to stand up for yourself, you feel like you're betraying someone, but you're not betraying them. You're finally choosing not to betray yourself. That's not cruelty. That's healing. A real story, the dinner table boundary. Let me tell you about James, a 42-year-old father of two. Every Sunday, he visited his aging mother out of respect, out of love, but at every dinner, without fail, she'd comment on his appearance. Are you gaining weight again? You used to look better when you were married. What happened to the old James? At first, he laughed it off. Then he started avoiding eye contact. Then Sunday dinners became dread, not love. One day, he stood up mid-meal and said, "Mom, I come here to spend time with you, not to be insulted. If this continues, I won't be joining these dinners anymore." She was shocked. She cried. She accused him of being disrespectful. But the next week, she didn't say a word about his body. She asked about his kids. She listened. That's the power of a boundary. It doesn't always end the relationship. Sometimes it begins a real one. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks. Stoic wisdom teaches that we don't control others, we only control ourselves. But that doesn't mean we become passive. It means we become intentional. When someone shows you disrespect, the Stoic doesn't scream. He doesn't beg. He doesn't plot revenge. He closes the door, turns the key, and walks away with dignity. Because peace isn't about silence. It's about who you allow in your space. Practical boundaries that save your mental health. Here's what healthy boundaries sound like in real life. If you raise your voice, I'll end the conversation. If you keep arriving late, I'll stop waiting. If you disrespect me in front of others, I won't pretend everything's okay. These are not ultimatums. They're truths. You're not punishing them. You're simply stating what you will and won't accept in your life. And here's what you need to hear. People who love you will adjust. People who only use you will react. But what if I lose them? You might. But ask yourself this: is it a loss or a relief disguised as grief? If the only way someone stays in your life is by ignoring your boundaries, then you're not in a relationship. You're in an emotional hostage situation. A true connection doesn't require you to shrink. It requires mutual respect, space, and truth. And yes, the fear is real. The guilt is loud. But louder than both should be your inner voice saying, I will not abandon myself to keep someone else comfortable. The final truth. People don't get to treat you however they want and still keep access to your life. You are not cruel for enforcing your worth. You are not cold for valuing your peace. You are not broken for finally saying enough. No more. Because boundaries aren't rejection, they're protection. They're self-respect in action. And sometimes, they're the most powerful act of love you can show to yourself. We all want to believe the best in others. We all want to give second chances. And when we love someone, we want to believe that love alone can fix them. But here's the Stoic truth no one tells you. There's a thin, dangerous line between being supportive and being complicit, between compassion and enabling. And too often, what we call understanding is really just fear. Fear of conflict, fear of change, fear of walking away, the trap of quiet endurance. You keep forgiving. You keep explaining. You keep absorbing the damage and calling it love. But all you're doing is protecting them from the natural consequences of their actions. And what happens when someone is shielded from consequence? They don't grow. They don't reflect. They repeat over and over. Because why would they change if nothing ever requires them to? Imagine this. You have a grown son. He borrows money constantly, but never pays it back. He forgets birthdays, but expects gifts. He raises his voice, but you say nothing, he's just stressed. You keep saying, he'll mature eventually. He just needs support. He has potential. But year after year, nothing changes. Now ask yourself, is he the problem? Or has your silence become the permission enabling looks like love, but it's not real? Compassion doesn't mean cleaning up their messes in the dark. It means turning on the light and saying, this behavior cannot continue, and I won't protect you from its consequences. But that's hard, isn't it? Because the moment you draw the line, they'll guilt you. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll cry. They'll say, I thought you loved me. But Stoicism reminds us, love without truth is manipulation. Compassion without clarity is chaos. And enabling is not an act of love. It's an act of fear wearing kindness like a mask. What enabling actually costs? It costs you your energy, your sleep, your boundaries, your dignity. You walk on eggshells. You sacrifice your needs. You water yourself down to keep someone else comfortable. But most dangerously, it costs them the opportunity to grow. You're not helping them. You're delaying their reckoning. You're removing the friction they need in order to evolve. And ironically, the more you save them from consequences, the more they resent you, because deep down, they know they're not truly facing life. The Stoic way forward. So how does a Stoic show real compassion? By saying, you're free to make your choices, but I'm free to choose how I respond. I won't stop you from hurting yourself, but I will stop you from hurting me. I care, but not at the cost of my peace. Because the most powerful form of love is not over-functioning. It's not self-erasure. It's not endless forgiveness. It's boundaries with a steady voice. It's truth delivered without apology. It's the quiet resolve that says, I love you, but I love myself. 2. And I refuse to disappear inside your dysfunction. Final reflection. Ask yourself, if nothing ever changes, what will this relationship look like in 5 years? What parts of yourself will be lost just to hold on to someone who refuses to change? Is that love, or is that fear dressed as sacrifice? The answer is your compass. So no enabling isn't kindness. It's slow self-abandonment. And it's not your job to save someone from the pain they created. It's your job to not stand in its way, because sometimes the greatest gift you can give another person is the opportunity to face their reflection without you standing in the way. Let it unfold. Let them learn. Let the consequences speak louder than you ever could. And let yourself go free. You don't need their apology to let go. You need your decision. There comes a moment in life when you stop waiting for them to get it, waiting for them to change, waiting for the apology you know deep down will never come. And in that moment, you realize something that changes everything. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. Let that sink in. You don't need their validation to walk away. You don't need their understanding to set a boundary. You don't need their approval to be free. The weight of waiting. So many people live their entire lives in emotional limbo, holding their breath, hoping one day the person who hurt them will finally see it. But hope, without evidence, becomes a cage. And while you wait, they go on living. They keep crossing lines, and you keep shrinking to make space for their comfort. The Stoics would ask, why do you outsource your inner peace to the same person who stole it in the first place? A real story, Carl's quiet collapse. Carl was a quiet man in his 70s, a widower, soft-spoken, the kind of man who still offered neighbors coffee just in case they dropped by. His adult son began visiting more after Carl's health declined. He said it was to help, and at first, it was, but little by little, it became control. Who could visit? What Carl could say? What money was spent on? What decisions were allowed? Carl didn't want conflict, didn't want to lose his son, so he stayed quiet for over a year, until one day he told a friend, I feel like a guest in my own home. He hadn't set boundaries. He hadn't said no, not because he was weak, but because he thought love meant endless tolerance. It doesn't. Love without boundaries is not love. It's quiet self-erasure. And Carl's story isn't rare. It's yours. It's mine. It's everyone who's ever chosen tension over truth, because we were afraid of losing someone we never truly had. Peace isn't given, it's chosen. Here's what Stoicism teaches us. You do not need a reason to protect your peace. You only need the courage to stop explaining it. You don't need to prove that someone is toxic. You don't need to list the receipts of their behavior. You don't even need them to understand, because sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is silence, a closed door, a missed call, a life lived without needing to be seen by those who were never really looking. From guilt to freedom. Will you feel guilty? Yes, because you were taught that choosing yourself was selfish. That drawing the line makes you cold. That peace is earned after everyone else is okay. But ask yourself, if nothing about them ever changes, what needs to change in you so you can be at peace? That answer is your guide. That answer is your stoic act of courage, the shift from reaction to liberation, when you stop waiting for them to fix it and start fixing your boundaries. Something radical happens. You stop rehearsing comebacks in your mind. You stop craving closure from people who can't even spell it. You stop living in emotional reaction and begin living in deliberate truth. You walk lighter. You breathe deeper. You remember who you are without the weight of their dysfunction on your shoulders. And that, right there, that quiet return to your center is what real power feels like. Final thought. You don't need their apology. You don't need their permission. You don't need the perfect timing, the perfect excuse, or the perfect words. You just need one thing: the courage to choose peace without asking anyone if it's okay. Let go of waiting. Let go of wishing. Let go of them. Because your peace is not negotiable. Not anymore. They lied. They disrespected. They crossed the line again and again. And you stayed. You explained. You gave them time, space, and the benefit of every doubt. But now you see it clearly. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Forgiveness without consequence becomes a free pass. And love without self-respect becomes your slow erasure. The truth is, they may never apologize. They may never understand what they did. They may never see the version of you that broke in silence, and that's okay. Because now you don't need their permission. You don't need them to change. You only need one thing: the choice to stop bleeding for people who never brought you a bandage. From this moment forward, you don't chase closure, you become it. You don't seek peace, you protect it. You don't repeat lessons, you enforce consequences. Gently, quietly, permanently. So when someone asks, "But don't you think they deserve another chance?" you answer, like a stoic, "Maybe. But I deserve peace more." If this message resonated with you, if it awakened something in your soul, then this isn't just another video. It's your line in the sand. Subscribe to Think Stoic 101, where we don't chase noise, we cultivate clarity. Comment below, what's one boundary you're finally ready to honor? Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been strong for too long. And remember, mercy is not weakness, but neither is letting chaos keep its place at your table. You've given enough. Now, it's time to choose you.